أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. We are starting today, inshallah, lesson 4 of the Introduction to Islamic Fiqh course. And we will go today through an introduction to the Hanafi Madhab. Basically part 1 of the Hanafiya Madhab. We'll talk about Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Abu Yusuf, Imam Muhammad ibn al-Hasan, and Imam Zufar. And also we'll talk about the approach, the methodology of the Imam Abu Hanifa, how he used to teach his students. Sorry, there are some typos here. I prepared this presentation very quickly. There might be a lot of those as we go along. We start by some poem or lines of poem that Imam Shafi'i said about Imam Abu Hanifa, commending him basically, saying لقد زان البلاد ومن عليها إمام المسلمين أبو حنيفة بآيات وأحكام وفقه كآيات الزبور على الصحيفة ورحمة ربنا أبدا عليه مدى الأيام ما قرأت صحيفة. So basically commending Imam Abu Hanifa for his knowledge that spread to all Muslims and benefited all scholars and every Muslim. Imam Abu Hanifa, his name is Abu Hanifa, or that's the laqab, here al-Nu'man ibn Thabit ibn Zuta, Mawla, meaning affiliated with Taymullah ibn Tha'laba. And he was born in the year 80 Hijri and died in the year 150 Hijri. Some say that he was born in 70, so there are a little bit of a disagreement about when exactly he was born. Most scholars says that it was in the year 80. Some says it's the year 70, maybe something in between. Now, just back to the Mawla and affiliated with the thing, this meaning that he is not Arab. So Mawla sometimes is called to non-Arabs. And it has a lot of meaning, but here is meaning that he's not Arab. And we need to reflect here and just stress or say again and stress the point that Islam is not Arab religion. It is universal. It's for everybody. And non-Arabs actually has contributed dramatically and significantly to the progress and enhancement and improvement and everything in the Muslims' civilizations, whether it's in Sharia or non-Sharia related issues. For example, if you are talking about the qira'at al-Quran, even qira'at al-Quran, the 10 variant readings, most of the ruwa and qurra were not Arabs, right? Imam Sibawayh, for example, the great and maybe the greatest Imam of Nahu, is non-Arab, and so on. Al-Bukhari is non-Arab, and so on. So basically, this is just something important to note. Anyway, back to Imam Abu Hanifa, he is basically called the greatest Imam, Al-Imam al-A'zam. That's his title given to him by all other scholars. He is the main Imam and the greatest Imam of the opinion-based school at his time and after that. And he is basically the main jurisprudence scholar, fiqh scholars of Baghdad. He was also considered Hafiz of Hadith, which is a rank above Muhaddith, and Hafiz is basically he had a great knowledge, a great deal of knowledge of Hadith, being a tabi'i, as we're going to highlight in a moment. And this is basically to rebut all those lies about Abu Hanifa Madhab, that he didn't rely on Hadith or he wasn't knowledgeable of Hadith or anything like that. All that are lies. Imam Abu Hanifa was a great Hadith scholar, and his fiqh is built on Hadith. And this is something that you have to be aware of. when we say Imam of Fiqh and scholar of Fiqh and so on, this is a level that you have to have like Hadith and Quran knowledge, and then on top of that, you have to have a proper understanding of how to use those evidence or those sources of Sharia to achieve judgment, as we talked about before, right? So there is no proper faqih and a great or a recognized fiqh scholar unless he is also, by definition, like a great hadith scholar and a great fiqh scholar as well. He has to have those tools, otherwise he cannot be a faqih. Now, comparing those people who doesn't know anything about anything in Wahhabis and Salafiyya madhab, and they basically keep like saying a lot of fiqh and fatwas that are really laughable in most cases. Anyway, so he has a great knowledge of hadith as well, not just fiqh, as we said. He is also considered from the followers, tabi'een, followers of Sahaba. He received knowledge from some Sahaba and over 70 of tabi'een. And he actually even narrated and related a hadith and related opinions and athar from over 4,000 shaykh, as we're going to see later. So at his time, there were 8 of Sahaba still alive, and he met some of them. There was Abdullah ibn Abi Awfa, who died the year 88, Sahl ibn Sa'd, who died 91 Hijri, Anas ibn Malik died 93 Hijri, Mahmud ibn Labid al-Ashhali died 96 Hijri, Abdullah ibn Busra al-Mazini died 96 Hijri, Abu Tufail died 102, some says 106 Hijri. There was a debate what year exactly he died. Al-Hirmas ibn Ziyad al-Bahili died 102 Hijri. Mahmud ibn al-Rabi' died 99 Hijri. So he is the only of the 4 Imam of fiqh scholar now, like the 4 madhabs that we follow now. Imam Abu Hanifa was the only tabi'i. Of course, there's a hadith from the Prophet, peace be upon him, blessed who saw and believed me, and blessed who saw those who saw me. So, and also the hadith that the best generations are mine, then the followers, then those who follows them. So he's of the second generation after Sahaba. His main fiqh teacher was the great Imam Hamad ibn Abi Sulaiman, who died 120, whose main teacher was also Imam al-Nakha'i, who died 96. All those are great Salaf scholar. And Imam Abu Hanifa himself is a Salaf scholar because he was a tabi'i. But tabi'in, there are like older tabi'in, mid-age tabi'in, and then younger tabi'in. So he was like in the younger tabi'in like period, because he was like younger than Abu Hamad and so on, as you can see from the date of born and this what years of born and death. Also, he learned fiqh of the Sahaba. So he learned the fiqh of Umar ibn al-Khattab, Ali ibn Abi Talib, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, ibn Abbas, and others from their students. So all those fiqh and way of thinking and as we talked about before, all those Sahabas like fiqh like funneled through to Abu Hanifa, or went to Abu Hanifa, and he basically digested all that and studied all that. There is another hadith. A lot of scholars think that it is actually applicable to Abu Hanifa. It is narrated that the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, had knowledge be hanging from the furthest star at Thuraya, some men from Persia would have taken it. Okay? Again, back to our point that like advancing and contributing to Islam is not only for Arabs. All the Muslims basically contribute to Islam in every way, shape, or form, and that's the responsibility of every single person of us to the extent that he can. he says, Imam Abu Hanifa says, I came to Basra and I thought there is no question I may be asked that I don't know the answer for. But I was asked, or they asked me many questions, or I was asked many questions that I were unable to answer. I therefore decided not to leave Hamad's side until he passes away. So I stayed with him for 18 years. He also used to say, I didn't pray a prayer since Hamad died unless I make istighfar for him along with my parents. And I make istighfar for those I learned from and I taught. Something to bear in mind, that those scholars and those imams appreciated, were grateful to their teachers and even to their students. So they will do istighfar to their teachers and their students. And it's a good sunnah that we basically could remind ourselves of. So maybe we take this moment to always remind ourselves to do istighfar to those who taught us something or benefited us in some way or form, and also do istighfar to those we like taught or we contributed to their progress or learning or anything like that, and keep that in our like routine in a daily basis. Abu Yusuf, one of the main imams of Hanafiya, as we will see, said, I make dua for Abu Hanifa before my parents. Even before he make dua to his parents, he make dua to Abu Hanifa. Abu Bakr ibn Ayyash, who is actually one of the ruwa of Qira'at Hafs, Shu'ba. You know, Qira'at Asim, we read, most people read Hafs an Asim. Shu'ba is the second rawi, second narrator of Asim. So Abu Bakr ibn Ayyash said that a brother of Sufyan al-Thawri, one of the also imams of Salaf, has died. So Imam Sufyan in the funeral or al-Janaza or al-Aza, basically receiving people to offer their condolences. And then Abu Hanifa came in. So when Sufyan al-Thawri saw him, he stood up and invited him to, and basically made him sit where he was sitting, the main chair where he was sitting, his position, and stood up with him like out of respect and so on. When everybody left the condolences session or this Aza, basically Sufyan al-Thawri student asked him, what did you do? Like, for Abu Hanifa, why did you like respected him that much? He said, I respect that man because of the great deal of knowledge that he possessed. And if this is not worthy of me to do that respect or offer that respect to him, then I do that respect because for the reason that or for his age, and if not, it's for his fiqh, his understanding and deep understanding and ilm and like smartness and sharpness in the fiqh. And if this is not worthy, for his devout and piety, because Imam Abu Hanifa was not, we have had a great deal of piety and wara'. He was a great man for sure. That his manaqib and his stories are really motivating to you know, if you want to approach yourself with some adab and some devout and piety. He was very rich, by the way, very extremely rich. And yeah, I mean, if we started talking about everything about Imam Abu Hanifa, we'll not finish. So anyway, Imam Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak said, I have never seen anyone in fiqh like Abu Hanifa, and I have seen Mis'ar, one of the scholars of Salaf, sitting at his hands, asking and learning from him. Sorry, again, some typos here, so sorry about that. Anyway, Mis'ar himself said, I saw him, Abu Hanifa, praying in the morning prayer, then starts his lesson until the prayer of Dhuhr, then to Asr, and so on. So basically, you start in the morning, Fajr prayer, after like the morning prayer, Fajr, they start to do the lesson until the Dhuhr, they pray Dhuhr, continue the lesson until the Asr, then until the Maghrib, until the sunset, until Isha. Then I said, okay, so when does he have time for worshipping, like his own worshipping and the ibadah? Because ibadah and own worshipping, like Qiyam al-Layl and reading Quran for yourself and so on, was a main part of their life, and that was everybody's doing it. It's not like nowadays where it's something that like only fraction of the population do it. It was just normal practice. So he was very like surprised. He doesn't have time to when he'll do the ibadah. So basically, he kept an eye on him, and then he found that Imam Abu Hanifa, after a while, came back to the masjid, like when everything became quiet after Isha, everybody left, and Imam Abu Hanifa left for a while. Then, when everything is quiet and almost nobody in the masjid, Imam Abu Hanifa came back and started praying all the way until dawn. Right, and then he went back and changed, and then came back for the morning prayer, and basically repeated the same practice. And so he said, I've never seen him unless he is fasting, and I never seen him sleeping at night. One of his wives said, never slept in the night. His sleeping was between Dhuhr and Asr in summer, and just after Isha in the winter. So basically, he just sleeps for very, very little time or few hours. And again, Sufyan ibn Uyayna, one of the great Salaf scholars, said, we never saw a man had more prayers than Abu Hanifa when they visited us in Mecca. Imam al-Shafi'i said, people in fiqh are children of Abu Hanifa. One of the, again, another great follower or tabi'in scholar, Masruq ibn al-Ajda' said, the knowledge of all Sahaba ends to 6 of Sahaba: Ali ibn Abi Talib, Ibn Mas'ud, Umar ibn al-Khattab, Zayd ibn Thabit, Abi al-Darda, and Ubay ibn Ka'b. And their knowledge ends to basically like went to and combined by the ilm of Ali and Ibn Mas'ud. And we know that ilm of Ali ibn Mas'ud basically and Umar and other Sahaba was taught to Abu Hanifa. It just shows you that there is an isnad of everything. Abu Hanifa, fiqh and the ilm and knowledge is not just something that he woke up in the morning and said, okay, I'm going to just basically read manuscripts, whatever available, or think about in my own mind and just come up with something. And, wow, look how great I am. I, taught myself, and I'm self-taught, and I know a lot of things nobody taught me, and make a pride of that. That's actually you should not take a pride of being without a sheikh or taught yourself, because if you taught yourself, guess what? You have really no knowledge whatsoever. You may have some information, but no knowledge. So that's very, very important. So as we said, he narrated and received knowledge from over 4,000 shaykh. Like mainly or major, like the main, when you keep receiving a lot, or back then, it was easy to go and just listen to hadith here and hadith there and combine. So you'll have a lot of sheikhs, not necessarily you accompanied them for a very long time. So that's like anybody that teaches you something, even one statement, he becomes a sheikh of you. That's why there are a lot of sheikhs. But his main sheikh was basically, as we said before, around 70, mainly Hamad ibn Abi Sulaiman, who he accompanied for over 18 years. So basically, he took from Ata took knowledge and narrated and so on from Ata ibn Abi Rabah, Tawus, Abdul Rahman al-A'raj, Abdul Rahman al-A'raj, Amr ibn Dinar, Nafi' Mawla ibn Umar, and so on. So many of the tabi'in scholars and older Salaf scholars. Now, let's move on to Al-Qadi Abu Yusuf, the second main figure in the Madhab al-Hanafi. His name is Yaqub ibn Ibrahim al-Bajili al-Ansari. So he's basically, his lineage go to al-Ansar. He is considered absolute mujtahid. Like Abu Hanifa is an absolute mujtahid, and his students are also absolute mujtahid, not just mujtahid in madhab, which is very unique situation in this Hanafi madhab and Hanafi school of fiqh, as we will see at the end. His great-grandfather was a Sahabi, Sa'ad ibn Bahir. He was one of the group of young Sahaba who basically applied to join Uhud, join the military with the Prophet and fight with the Prophet in Uhud. But the Prophet, peace be upon him, send them back because they were too young to fight. So basically, after that, in the next and following Ghazawat, the Sahabi and those basically Sahaba, young Sahaba, became old enough to join the Prophet at that time. Okay, he was born in the year 93 Hijri and died 182. Some says that he was born in 113, but that, although that's like the most famous, but actually is not the most accurate. Was the main judge for the Islamic Caliphate during the Umayyad and Abbasid periods until his passing away. And that's why the Madhab al-Hanafi is the most tested madhab in the judicial system since inception until today. Like right away, after Abu Hanifa died and his student carried his knowledge, their student directly started applying that in a real life situations, not just imaginary and hypothetical situations like other madhabs. It was basically they were the judges, the main judges, all the issues and disputes and whatever, they were seeing it, applying that knowledge, improving upon it, and so on. So it's the most robust system and basically fiqh and madhab from a judicial system point of view. And that's why, as we said before, it's basically the basis of all the civil codes and the qanun and the law in most Muslim countries. He was very poor, but also was very eager to seek knowledge. He went to Abu Hanifa lessons, but couldn't keep up due to the necessity to work. His father ordered him, asked him to, you cannot keep going to Abu Hanifa lessons. You need to work. You have to work to feed yourself and help the family. When Abu Hanifa noticed he's not returning, Abu Yusuf is not returning to his lessons, he asked about him. And after a long while, Abu Yusuf came to a lesson, one of the lessons, when he could afford to go at a lesson, he went there. Abu Hanifa asked him why, or where were you? Why you didn't, or you were basically not attending for a long time. Abu Yusuf said, I couldn't come because I had to obey my father and work. So after the lesson, Abu Yusuf was about to leave, but Abu Hanifa told him, wait, and basically pointed to him, wait. So he waited until everyone left. Then Abu Hanifa gave him a sack of money with 100 dinar, which is a lot of money. And he told him, keep at the lessons, not do not miss anything. And when the money I gave you runs out, let me know. After a little bit, Abu Hanifa again gave him another 100 dinar, and so on. And he kept giving him for as we will see, for 17 years. He kept giving to him very, very often. And Abu Yusuf said, I never told him that I ran out of money. Never told him that. But he knew, and he was giving me money as if somebody is telling him that I had the money he gave me runs out and now I need more. But I never told him. So it's very, very strange. And that's what's what we call kashf, right? How did Abu Hanifa know that, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, maybe farasa or there was give him knowledge of indication, something he saw of Abu Yusuf, or something that he was able to understand or see or know that he has no more money and basically he need more. Anyway, as we said, he also said, I accompanied Abu Hanifa for 17 years, never left his side except for illness. Even one of Abu Yusuf's children died, and he did not go to the burying and the service because he didn't want to miss a lesson that he regrets later. From the amount of knowledge in one lesson and how it goes, Abu Yusuf knew that if he misses a lesson, there's going to be great deal of knowledge that he missed. Abu Yusuf got very sick once, to the extent that a lot of people was afraid that he may die. Abu Hanifa visited him, and after the visit, he said, if this young man dies, he is the most knowledgeable person on earth. Abu Yusuf is also the first hadith teacher of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. Okay, so we all know Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Imam Ahlul Athar, Imam al-Hadith, and so on. Who's his teacher, the main teacher, the first teacher that he took hadith from? Abu Yusuf, right? So again, that rebut the myth and the lies around the Madhab al-Hanafi that they didn't know hadith or they weren't reliant on hadith or anything like that. That was basically nonsense. Many of his books didn't reach us, but he has a book called al-Athar. Again, al-Athar. They were basically the main source of al-Athar. So al-Athari school that they call themselves Athari now, basically they, like many of what they rely on, took from Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal and others, and all that basically like ends in Abu Hanifa's labs. In that book, he included, Imam Abu Yusuf included hadith and evidence supporting the Hanafi madhab. Most of that hadith and athar narrated from Abu Hanifa. So basically, again, Abu Hanifa had a great deal of knowledge of athar and hadith. Moving on to Muhammad ibn al-Hasan, the second figure, the second main man in the madhab al-Hanafi. He was born in the year 123 Hijri and died 189. Became Imam and he was only 20 years old. He also became a judge and also he was a muhaddith as well. One of the narrators of Muwatta Malik. Muwatta Malik is a book of hadith. And one of the narrators, the main narrators of that Muwatta is Imam Muhammad ibn Hassan. He was also one of the main teachers of Imam al-Shafi'i, who took so much knowledge from. Like Imam al-Shafi'i took so much knowledge from Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Shibani. And Imam Shafi'i said, again, sorry for the typos, said that I wrote from Muhammad ibn Hassan books and knowledge like enough to fill 2 camels to carry, or requires 2 camels to carry. Just give you the amount of knowledge and books that they learned or he learned from Imam Muhammad ibn Hassan. He is also a teacher of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. When he was asked, Ahmad ibn Hanbal was asked, sometimes was asked of some student would ask him, how do you answer these difficult questions, very delicate and difficult questions? How do you know that answer? He said, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal said, from what I learned from Muhammad ibn Hassan books and from him. Yeah, I think we said that before. Oh, yeah, he was born 123 Hijri and died 189. 189 is basically, he died also on the same day that Imam al-Kisai, Imam al-Kufa in Arabic linguistic, and also Imam al-Qira'at died on the same, they both died on the same day. He became Imam, Muhammad ibn Hassan became Imam and teacher in the masjid and has like a halaqa when he was 20 years old. I think we said that. Yeah, I think this is repeated. Yeah, and this is repeated. So basically, when asked how he these difficult, tricky matters, Muhammad ibn Hassan's book. Yeah, so I learned it from Muhammad ibn Hassan's books. His books are the main source of fiqh madhabs, not just al-Hanafi, all other madhabs, because as I said, for example, he was a teacher to Shafi'i, teacher to Ahmad ibn Hanbal. He was narrator to Muwatta, Imam Malik. So Al-Mudawwana, Al-Asadiyya, Al-Mudawwana, and so on. One of the main sources for those madhab Imam Malik was actually the books written by Muhammad ibn Hassan as well. One of his main books is Al-Mabsut, which was memorized by al-Shafi'i, and one of Ahlul Kitab reverted to Islam after he read it, saying, if this is a book by your Muhammad Jr., by Muhammadakum al-Azghar, how good would a book by your Muhammad al-Akbar be? Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And that made him revert. Some of his other great books that we received, Al-Jami' al-Saghir, Al-Jami' al-Kabir, Al-Siyar al-Saghir, Al-Siyar al-Kabir, and Al-Ziyadat. Couple of books called Al-Ziyadat. So there are 6 books, 5 here and Mabsut. These 6 books together are referred to as Zahir al-Riwaya, meaning the riwayah of the fiqh, which basically the books that record the Hanafi madhab and narrated most and were narrated mostly through tawatur. Okay, so it's very affirmed in terms of its validity for a madhab al-Hanafi. There are a lot of other madhabs. A lot of other books. One of the books is Musnad Abu Hanifa. Again, so Abu Hanifa had a musnad, had a book of hadith, and narrated by Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Shibani. Again, that myth that Imam Abu Hanifa and Madhab al-Hanafi scholars didn't really know much about hadith or anything like that, that's a lie. And again, because Imam Abu Hanifa was a tabi'i, he just narrates directly, or like one man or two men to the Prophet, or three men to the Prophet. He is very close. He's actually even closer than al-Bukhari. So the hadith that Imam, and he's even like more knowledgeable of hadith than Bukhari himself. Al-Bukhari may have memorized more hadith, but in terms of understanding of hadith and so on, Imam Abu Hanifa, like, he's a tabi'i, one of the direct tabi'in. They saw Sahaba. He listened to Sahaba. You don't get much closer to the Prophet than that from the scholars that we have inherited their knowledge, right? Again, and that's why the hadith that Madhab al-Hanafi relies on, even if some of those hadith go against what in al-Bukhari, that doesn't mean that what in the Bukhari is better or more accurate or correct. No, that doesn't mean that, right? That's something that you have to bear in mind. The hadith that has been narrated by Madhab al-Hanafi, by Imam Abu Hanifa, that he relied on, are more reliable for fiqh purpose than whatever narrated in some hadith book that came some 100-something years after him. Okay, and that's why, for example, a lot of people would consider al-Muwatta more accurate than al-Bukhari sometimes, especially for what al-Muwatta and al-Bukhari combined, like both narrated. The riwayah and the narration in al-Muwatta would take precedence over the Bukhari or Muslim in some words. So the wording of the wording in al-Muwatta and so on would be considered more accurate by some scholars. A lot of scholars will take that, especially for fiqh. Okay, so we move on to Imam Zufar, Abu al-Huzayl Zufar al-Basri. He was born in the year 110 and died 158 Hijri, so he died very young, about 48 years old. He was also a muhaddith, known for the hadith, and the main figure of opinion-based school. Accompanied knowledge and ibadah, or basically like combined by knowledge and ibadah. I think that's better wording. So he was very known for being abid and knowledgeable and alim, not just scholars or ilm. Now, moving on to because he didn't live long. His opinion is recorded in some, or in several like places in the book of books of Hanafiya madhab. But of course, the Sahiban are like take precedence over Zufar's opinion in most cases. Zufar's opinions, I don't remember, maybe like 8 opinions or 13, something like that. That has been like adopted as a fatwa, but mostly were not adopted, just mentioned as a secondary opinion or something like that. So the main figure, the imam is basically Abu Hanifa, then As-Sahiban, and then Zufar. As-Sahiban being Abu Yusuf, Al-Qadi Abu Yusuf, and then Muhammad ibn al-Hasan. Now, what is the Imam Abu Hanifa's approach in teaching? The Hanafi school of fiqh was very unique. They had their own, the Imam had a great or a very unique approach in teaching. The issue at hand will be presented. There is a mas'ala, an issue that you need to think about. What is the hukm of this? What is the judgment in this issue? Then the Imam will analyze it and discuss it with his students, allowing them to challenge or agree, right? And then they will keep discussing that. It will turn sometimes into a debate and, discussion, and everybody say no and yes and agree and disagree. And then when a final decision is reached, that is a final decision that will be recorded as an opinion of the madhab. Okay? All that in the lesson of Imam Abu Hanifa. So it was very interactive, not Imam Abu Hanifa telling them, okay, you should do here that, you should do this and that, and the opinion is that because of this. No, you will discuss it, debate it, and so on. Sometimes consensus is not achieved, like, that's like human nature and normal, I guess. So they will record the different opinions, mainly the Imams, Zufar's and Abu Yusuf and Muhammad ibn al-Hasan's opinion. And sometimes the Imam would even support the opposing opinion, the dissented opinion, the opinion that doesn't agree with his opinion initially. Right? He will support, give them evidence that maybe the originator of that opinion, even from his student, wasn't aware of. So he will give him more evidence to support what he says, and he will keep giving him, and he will say, yeah, that's right. Okay, that's and the student will think that, oh, now my opinion is basically the correct one. But then the Abu Hanifa will rebut it, totally destroys it. Right? So to teach his student how to extract judgments from the evidence and weigh between the evidence and so on, what we call usul al-fiqh. And also the Imam would exhaust all possible opinions. Sometimes they will discuss all opinions. They will end up with 3 opinions, for example. The Imam would prefer one of them. That doesn't mean the others are bad or wrong, or he doesn't see their way or that agrees with. He basically just prefer the most, or he sees the best opinion is that, and that's what he will record. But the other opinions are also like acceptable to him. He will also accept them depending on the situation, and that's why they will also be recorded in al-madhab. Imam Abu Yusuf al-Qadi said Imam Abu Hanifa would look at all evidence and adopt the opinion supported by most athar. So basically, when something presents, he will ask them, okay, what do you have from athar about it? A hadith and sayings of Sahaba and sayings of Tabi'een, other like older Tabi'een scholars. What do you have? They will combine all that. The students will present what they have. He has what he knows. They will combine all that, and then he will discuss it and look at what most of the athar and the athar suggest or support, and basically will answer based on that. If or when the athar and all the evidence like contradicts, or they don't necessarily point out to certain or to a certain direction, he will compare and weigh evidence and think about it and do the qiyas and all the other like usul fiqh that he applies in order to achieve or reach the best opinion they could. And again, that will be discussed and debated and so on. So Madhab al-Hanafi is a fiqh of a group of scholars to others, right? And basically that's how it was passed on generation after generation. These can be seen clearly from how the fatwa is based on Imam Abu Hanifa's opinion which is most cases, but sometimes one of the Sahibin, Abu Yusuf or Muhammad, and as I said, in very like little or occasions or fewer occasions, Zufar. Abu Yusuf used to say, I didn't say any opinion opposing to that of Abu Hanifa's, which he didn't say first, but then preferred one or another over it. So basically, which means in a way, all opinions are ultimately Abu Hanifa's. This is why, because in Madhab Abu Hanifa, again, because of how the approach and so on, when you read in the books, you'll say, all right, the Imam said so and so. Sometimes when there is a non-consensus about the issue at hand, Imam Abu Hanifa said so, Abu Yusuf said so, Muhammad said so, Zufar said so, for example. So you may end up with 2 or 3 or more opinions from the madhabs. Then which one do we do? Which one do we take, right? Then other scholars will go and through the evidence and support one over another. And mostly, in most of the cases, it's Imam Abu Hanifa's own opinion, the main opinion of the Sahib al-Madhab. But sometimes it is not. So the other like madhab will say, okay, you are not following Abu Hanifa, then you are just following here and there. But no, we are like Madhab al-Hanafi it is a madhab of not of one man. It is a madhab of a group of scholars that is being passed on to others and others and others, so and so on. And even those opposing opinions ultimately are opinions of Abu Hanifa, because he said them, but then he rebutted them, or he saw something better, and so on and so forth. Although some of his students didn't see eye to eye and basically didn't take that. I think one of the occasions when he in one instance, or actually it happens a lot. I think we perhaps mentioned that, but Imam Abu Hanifa went for a trip and then came back after a while, and then they asked him about something, and he gave him opinion, and they told him, no, that opinion must be wrong. It goes against this and this and this and this and that and so on and so on and so. He said, okay, what do you have about it? What do you think about it? They will say their opinion. He will say another opinion and then start supporting it and rebut what they said until they agree with that second opinion he said. He will tell them, okay, do you agree on that? Everybody, yeah, that must be the right answer. We didn't know that. You are right. This is the right answer. Remember, Abu Hanifa will say, all right, but actually this is not the right answer. The right answer is another third option. And they will be basil. Why you mean? No, how can that be? He will say, because of this and this and that. And you know what? He will say that this and supported it. Actually, that's not very correct, because you could say this and this and that. And until they say, oh, right, yeah, it is that third opinion, right? So he moved with them all that way from this, and at every stage, ultimately or eventually, they will agree with what he says. And then basically they will recall the three opinions sometimes, and the Imam will prefer one over the three, or anything like that. So again, just gives you a glimpse of how great this school of fiqh was, and how Imam Abu Hanifa approach and knowledge benefited everybody and all the other madhabs, as the great scholars of fiqh also said about him. Like it's enough that Imam al-Shafi'i says Imam Abu Hanifa is the greatest Imam of fiqh. الناس عياد بالفقه على أبو حنيفة إذا الإمام الأعظم رضي الله عنه وأرضاه ورضي الله عن سادتنا العلماء الأحناف وجميع العلماء الذين those who passed that great deal of knowledge to us and preserved it by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala order and help and well. Right, so we move on to questions. It's a short lesson today, inshallah. So if there are questions, let me know.